how's it going, guys? My name is Zach with the Movie Castle, and today we're going to be taking a look at Clown in a Cornfield. This just came out May 9th, 2025, and is a Shudder movie. And even though Shudder's a streaming service, I was able to catch this on the big screen. Super cool that Shudder's doing that now. This movie is directed by Eli Craig, stars Katie Douglas, Aaron Abrams, and Carson MacCormac. And this is also based on a series of young adult novels by Adam Cesare. And I had heard about the novels. I had seen them on display at Barnes & Noble, and I think I heard a few people talk about them. I knew that they were kind of a thing, and I was hoping that this movie would pan out into something good. I had a bit of expectations for this movie, but sadly, no. This movie is just serviceable. If you want to go in and see a clown in a cornfield killing people, that's there. The end of the movie, like the second half, has a fair bit of action. There are some fun enough sequences. The plot's a little bit different, and the characters are okay, but overall, this just comes out kind of flat. And I guess I should get the elephant in the room out of the way. A lot of people speculate that this movie got the green light because it's a killer clown movie, and the Terrifier movies are super popular. But the thing with that, comparing Terrifier to this movie, you can really see what made Terrifier so special by how this movie doesn't pan out. Art the Clown had personality. Friendo does not. The kills in Terrifier were super intense. Here, they're just kind of there. This movie honestly feels PG-13. Like, it's rated R, but it does not feel it. There's some swearing and there's a decent amount of blood, but none of the kills really stand out, and they quite often are framed in such a way where we don't get to see how spectacular they might have been. Again, it feels like a PG-13 edit, and to be honest, while Terrifier was super authentic, Clown in a Cornfield really comes off as disingenuous. All the kids in this movie really feel like, you know that internet saying, fellow kids? Yeah, it really feels like that. They're all talking about how, oh, my parents and the teachers just don't get me. They love their Wi-Fi and social media. And honestly, this movie loves to criticize out-of-touch adults, but really does feel like it was made by out-of-touch adults. I've seen teenage angst movies work before, things like Lost Boys and Ginger Snaps, but those were edgy, and this movie really feels like it was playing it safe, which is probably a large piece as to why it comes off as disingenuous. Overall, a pretty flat movie that had potential, but really needed to push it. Outside of that, though, like I said, it's totally serviceable. The last half of the movie's pretty action heavy, and it does move relatively well, but yeah, it's a movie that I look at and I'm like, it could have been something, but I'm just gonna watch Terrifier again. But that being said, I do want to break down and analyze this a little bit more. I'll be avoiding the end, so no major spoilers, but from here on out, I do want to do a bit of a deeper dive. We open up with a family moving to a small town. The dad's a doctor, and he's going to replace the old doctor who's retiring, and it turns out he's a single father. And get ready for all the cliches. I miss the big city. What? We don't even have Wi-Fi here. There's nothing to do in this small town. You know, the Messengers did this way better. But whatever, she starts to meet the kids in town. There's a next door neighbor that seems like a good enough guy, and he used to be friends with this guy that's quickly becoming her boyfriend. And you know, they have a bit of a past. And in regards to her boyfriend and all his friends, yeah, they're the bad kids. And even though the whole town is saying stay away from the bad kids, they get detention together on the very first day and are going to kind of breakfast club their way into being friends. But why are these kids such outsiders? It turns out this town had a corn syrup factory that was like the lifeblood of the whole town. It got burned down and they blame these kids, and even though they were able to prove it was an electrical fire, the town still hates them. Yeah, that's kinda weird. They were proven innocent and everyone still hates them, but whatever, that is what it is. And it's also worth noting, with the fire and a lot of this town's past, so much of this movie happened before our main character got here. And yeah, it feels like I'm being told the plot rather than actually living it. And you know what? We had a scene as the prologue with generic random couple getting murdered. Maybe you should have made that the fire sequence. Maybe you could have showed us a little bit more. We are getting into that telling instead of showing territory. Well, it turns out the corn syrup factory had a clown mascot, Friendo, and it turns out the kids like to make short scary videos on YouTube that turn Friendo into a killer clown. Now, with this whole YouTube element, I was expecting a lot more. I was expecting it to be about the joy of movie making and the creative process bringing these kids together, but no, the YouTube element will be primarily used just to excuse whenever something scary happened. I bet it's those YouTubers playing a prank on us, but also it reminds us that these kids are cool because they like the social media just like we do, right? Yeah, it's kind of cringy. But eventually there is a real Friendo the killer clown, just like they have in their movies, but actually going around and killing their friends. And like I said, Friendo has no personality, his costume's classic but is super generic, and the kills lack any pizzazz or pop and feel edited to be in a PG-13 movie, so we got that going for us. But also, another horribly wasted element in this movie is the mystery element. You know, you have the two guys that she knows, and it kind of feels like My Bloody Valentine, and of course people are gonna reference Scream with the masked killer going around and picking off this friend group. But I warn you, don't get invested in the mystery, because randomly, like halfway through, the movie decides, oh, we're not doing that, we're doing something completely different. Now, I do want to say this something completely different is much better than what we had been doing. It goes from a Scream clone to being something new and different that also has more energy and more action. Again, we still feel kind of PG-13, but it's at least a little more exciting, even if it doesn't get pushed as far as it should. But it really makes me wonder why we wasted our time pretending to be Scream for like the first half of the movie when this really isn't a mystery. Oh yeah, I know, because Scream was popular, right? And for the most part, I liked the second half good enough. I will say, it did fall a little bit at the ending. When you get to the ending, expect the film's full and complete message to be 100% spelled out for you so you don't have to think or put anything together. I mean, remember the psychologist scene at the end of Psycho that Hitchcock was forced to add in? Get ready for another one of that. And also, boy, there was one throwaway line of dialogue that turned out to be super important, but glad we didn't linger on that. So yeah, when it over-explains itself at the end, it kind of ruins it and makes the movie feel preachy. Wasn't a huge fan of that. So overall, with the second half of the movie having enough life to it, there is something there, but if we're being honest, it doesn't push it enough. And I don't know, it definitely feels like a movie that was made for streaming, and it has this weird thing where it was based on a YA book, but then they turned it into a rated R movie, but then the rated R feels like they're trying to be PG-13? Yeah, this is confused. It criticizes people who are old and out of touch and wants to play it like the cool teens, but at the same time, it really does feel like a movie made by people who are old and out of touch. Yeah, not a strong recommendation. If you want to see a so-so fun horror movie, if you want to see a killer clown, it's okay enough, but yeah, it's more of a lazy Saturday afternoon movie. Anyway though, to everyone who's watched so far, thank you for watching. To everyone who's liked and subscribed, thank you. You really are helping the channel out. I'll leave a relevant playlist on the bottom. This should be my 2025 playlist. If you want to hear me talk about more recent stuff, you can click right here and see more. Anyway, have a good day. I'll see you guys again very, very soon. Playlist here. Have a good day now.